Good day! We are from Group 2 and we are going to present a parade of taxa of the phylum Chlorophyta. Specifically, we are going to focus on the class Chlorophyceae and Ulvophyceae. For an overview, here are the representative species that we are going to present. Let's begin with the class Chlorophyceae. So these are freshwater or marine algae that can be unicellular or multicellular. First on the list is the Stendesmus obliquus under the family Stendesmaceae. This is a common genera of non-motile freshwater algae. They can display phenotypic plasticity that can be influenced by various environmental factors. This results to different morphologies. For example, in the cases wherein there are no grazers, they exist primarily as unicells. However, in the presence of grazers such as Daphnia, synovial colonies can be formed. Typically, these colonies are in the multiples of 2, 4, and 8. In multicellular state, Stendesmus is not usually grazed as heavily by Daphnia. However, their nutrient uptake and light harvesting ability is compromised because of the reduced surface to volume ratio. Typically, Stendesmus reproduce asexually through the formation of autospores. However, they can also occasionally form zoospores if they are deprived of nitrogen. These representative species have spines and bristles. However, other species of the Stendesmus do not have these features. Spines and bristles make the colonies more buoyant and it allows them to deter predators. These species are typically used as bioindicator and being studied for bioremediation as well as its potential in biofuel production. Now let's move on to the volvox carteri, which is under the family Volvoceae. These are multicellular green algae that can thrive in mildly alkaline and low nitrate environments. Several hundred flagellated cells form colonies. Somatic cell in a volvox colony has 2 flagella and then an eye spot that can be used for light reception. Individual cells are connected by cytoplasmic threads that allow cell-to-cell communication, and it also allows the colony to travel in a coordinated manner. In a colony, several cells are specialized in photosynthesis while others are specialized in reproduction. This species can reproduce sexually and asexually. It is a famous research model for the genetic mechanisms that determine multicellularity and the distribution of tasks across cells in multicellular organisms. Next is the dunolielasalina, under the family Dunolielaceae. These are motile biflagellate microalgae that are defined morphologically by the absence of rigid cell wall. What they do have instead is a thin elastic plasma membrane. As shown on the figure on the left part, cells are usually pear-shaped. This microalga can store large amount of valuable fine substances such as carotenoids, glycerol, lipids, vitamins, minerals, and proteins. One of the interesting features of this microalgae is that under non-inductive conditions, they appear green. However, when placed under stressful conditions, they turn red. These species are being cultivated for their high content of beta-carotene. Now let's move on to the next species, which is Pediastrum duplex under the family Hydrodictyasi. These are planktonic freshwater green algae that can form flat, plate-like 32-celled colonies. Other species of Pediastrum can have colonies of 4 to 128 cells. In the colony, inner cells are quadrate to angular while the cells on the outer sides have tapering blunt tip projections. In some cases, they have short horns or bristles that can both improve its buoyancy in the water and also help them prevent predation. These algae can reproduce sexually and asexually. Now let's move on to the ankistrodesmos falcatus under the family Selenestraceae. These are unicellular and uninucleate freshwater green algae. As shown in the figure, this species is needle-like in shape with gradually tapering ends. Each cells are attached with each other at the center of the body, arranged parallel or radially. This species, unlike volvox, has no gelatinous sheath. These chlorophytes serve as model organisms for studying phytoplankton cellular physiology because they can live under wide variety of conditions and they can grow at a faster rate compared to other algae species. Some studies are pointing out that it can be a potential alternative to antibiotics because it can inhibit the growth of streptococcus. Additionally, it can also be a potential source of sustainable green energy because of its potential in the production of biodiesel due to its high lipid content and biomass productivity.
Clamidomora civales is under the family Clamidomonaceae. It is also known as the watermelon snow algae. Genus Chlamydomonas is unicellular and biflagellated. They can be solitary or in colonies. One of the most interesting species under this genus is Chlamydomonas nivalis. C. nivalis is called the watermelon snow algae because it contains red carotenoid pigment called astaxanthin that makes patches of snow appear red or pink. This pigment protects it from photo damage. Without this pigment, it would appear green just as any Chlamydomonas. It can occur as red resting cells or in its green to red biflagellate stage. Another interesting fact about this is that there is a bacterial algal association on the surface of its cell wall. But the ultimate question would be, is it okay to drink the melted red snow? The answer would be no because C. nivalis is toxic to humans. Next is Hydrodiction reticulatum from family Hydrodictyasi. It is also known as the water net algae. Genus Hydrodiction forms large net-like cenobic colonies. One of its widely known species is the Hydrodiction reticulatum. Each cell of H. reticulatum is multinucleated and elongated with a single highly reticulate chloroplast and a large central vacuole. These cells are linked to 3 or 8 other cells which makes this net-like appearance. Due to their shape, they often cause nuisance blooms in fresh water. Next is Persiola calophylla from the family Persiolaceae. Genus Persiola forms a small sheet-like blades that are monostromatic. Superficially, Persiola resembles the small thallic ulva. However, if you look closely here in Persiola calophylla, you will see that the cells are aggregated packets which makes this grid-like appearance, and each chloroplast here is stellate and axial. What's interesting about Phycology is that it is a terrestrial Persiola species. Unlike other Persiola, it thrives in terrestrial habitats like intertidal docks and pavements. It can survive these conditions because it has natural sunscreen, MAA, which acts as its photoprotective mechanism. Next is Batriococcus brownie from family Batriococcus. Genus Batriococcus forms colonies with oval cells embedded in amber-colored mucilage. One of its widely distributed species is Batriococcus brownie around the world. What's fascinating about bee brownie is that its mucilage forms these hydrocarbon oils which allows it to float. And because it does that, it is said that bee brownie has contributed substantially to the deposition of high-grade oil shales and coals. Next is Spiroplaya annulina from family Spiroplayaceae. Genus Spiroplaya has multinucleate cells arranged end-to-end in unbranched filaments. Spiroplaya annulina has long cylindrical body. Each of its cells contains a veritine with protoplasm that are arranged in ring-like units. And the cytoplasm is restricted to a number of transverse bands separated by a vacuole, and it occurs in shallow freshwater habitats.
Hematococcus pluvialis is from the family of Hematococcus under genus Hematococcus. The members of this genus are green astaxanthin rich and predominates in freshwater, brackish lakes, reservoirs, and ponds. As you can see, pluvialis appears to be color red when it is at its resting stage, then turns green eventually when it is at its swimming stage. This freshwater green microalga has the richest source of astaxanthin, which is a phytocarotenoid with various benefits used in aquaculture, pharmaceuticals, and cosmetics. Colostrum astroidium is from the family of Stendesmus under genus Colostrum. The members of this genus appears to be free-floating colonies, usually spherical, cuboid, or pyramidal, and has widely varying numbers of individual cells. They thrive in fresh water from Arctic to subtropical, but most often in eutrophic environments. Astroidium appears to be green and colonial and has a size ranging from 38 to 46 microns in diameter. Its cell body appears mostly spherical with some conical or globular bulges. Its synovium has 8 to 16 cells, and each cell are 10 to 15 microns in diameter. These microalgae are primarily producer and proponent of aquatic food chain in freshwater ecosystems. Microspora abbreviata is from the family of Microsporaceae under genus Microspora. The members of this genus are autotrophic protists that are often characterized by their many segments. They are most frequently found tangled in moss or other vegetation. Abbreviata is a terrestrial epiphytic filamentous green algae. The cells measure from 5 to 7 microns in diameter and 7 to 15 microns long. It varies from quadrate to cylindrical shape, and its chloropods are perforated or nut-like. It initially attaches to the substrate by means of single holdfast cell following settlement of the motile zoospore. Pleurococcus vulgaris is from the family of Chaetoporaceae under genus Pleurococcus. The members of this genus sometimes form a thin green covering on the moist shaded side of tree barks, rocks, damp walls, and soil. Vulgaris is a terrestrial green alga. This species has spherical cells, either solitary or clumped together. Each cell contains a large dense chloroplast, either globe or plate shaped. They have heavy cell walls that protect them against excessive water loss. Wistelia botryoides is from the family of Stendesmaceae under genus Wistelia. The members of this genus are green colonies of 4 non-flagellated spherical cells held together with remnants of parent cell wall, which can aggregate with mucilage matrix to more than 25 colonies. Botryoides is a freshwater microalga. It is planktonic with colony composing 16 or 32 cells. It has mucilaginous interconnections between its subcolonies. The shapes of the cells in the colonies varies from spherical to subtriangular or subtrapeziform.
The species Colourpop, commonly known as sea grapes, is part of the phylum Chlorophyta, class Ulvaceae, order Bryopsitales, family Colourpaceae, and genus Colourpop. This plant has erect branches arising from a horizontal stolon attached to the sediment at intervals by descending rhizomes. The erect branches arise every few centimeters, reaching as high as 30 centimeters in height. A large number of branchlets resembling ovate or spherical bodies on stalks arise from each erect branch, giving it its name of sea grapes. Colourpop is also sinusitic, meaning the plant is multinucleate and non-septate. Codium fragile, also known as deadman's fingers, is also part of the phylum Chlorophyta, the class Ulvaceae, order Bryopsitales, family Codiaceae, and genus Codium. It is a dark green algae up to 1 meter in length. It is composed of dichotomous cylindrical branches which are 0.5 to 1 centimeter in diameter. The segments look like dark green fingers, hence the name deadman's fingers. It is made up of interwoven filaments ending in a layer of swollen utricles that cover the surface of the thallus. Its holdfast is a broad sponge-like cushion of tissue, and the surface is soft, so it is sometimes mistaken as a sponge. Young species of Codium fragile stand upright, then it droops as it gets longer. Acetabulum, also known as mermaid's cup, is also under phylum Chlorophyta, class Ulvaceae, order Dasyclatales, family Polyphysaceae, and genus Acetabularia. Acetabulum is a single-celled green algae rising up to 10 centimeters in height. It has a basal rhizoid and an axially elongated stalk, which bears whorls of branching hairs. It produces at the apex a reproductive cap where cell wall devoid gametes are produced. Of here the name comes etymologically from the Latin word acetabulum, which means a dish or saucer. Acetabulum is also highly calcified. Cladophora glomerata is also under phylum Chlorophyta in the class Ulvaceae, however in the order Cladophorales, family Cladophoraceae, and genus Cladophora. It is a branched filamentous chlorophyte with large cylindrical cells forming long, regularly branched growths. Its cells contain many parietal round chloroplasts, which usually join into a net-like structure. Its branches originate by a sideways protrusion of a cell end below the apex, and branching frequency is influenced by the strength of the current. Monostroma nitidum, commonly named green nori, is also under phylum Chlorophyta, class Ulvophyceae, however in another order called Yolotrixflaga, family Monostromataceae, and genus Monostroma. Its thallus is thin, membranous, soft, lubricous, yellowish-green, and at first saccate, later splitting into several blades with crisp margins. In surface view, its cells are rounded polygonal with one large pyronoid per cell. The cells are mostly grouped in twos. Its rhizoids are thin and long, issuing from the basal portion of the thallus. Monostroma nitidum is commonly growing on rocks and stones in the uppermost to middle intertidal zone, mostly in sheltered inlets and coves.
Bornitalia oligospora, also known as green sea sausage seaweed, that are obviously sausage-like in appearance, is a representative of family Desicadaceae composed of cenocytic algae with filamentous whorls. In the field, it appears as clusters of club-shaped thallus that ranges from green to red in color, with a distinct white tip. The thallus is usually bent and attached to the substrate via small holdfasts. Tightly packed lateral filamentous branches covers the thallus in whorl-like pattern resembling a bottle brush. As seen in some of these pictures, there are evidences of slight calcification in their cluster. Moving on, genus Ulva is often characterized by pseudoparenchymatous morphology and are very similar and sometimes synonymous to enteromorpha species. Ulva lactuca here is commonly known as sea lettuce. As seen in these pictures, it has a perfect depiction of a regular lettuce, but you can probably put this on your favorite burgers. Ulva lactuca is described in situ as sheets of bright green thallus or leaves with ruffled edges, which contributed in its resemblance to lettuce. The leaves are thin, broad, flat, and almost rounded in shape. Well, you can see it in here in this illustration, but these leaves are perforated when examined closely. It has no stalk or true roots. It is bright green in its natural habitat, but when harvested, it may or may not turn into other colors like black or white. This alga is responsible for the ulva blooms that we can observe in shallow waters and high to low intertidal zones. Moving on to another representative of the ulva species is the Ulva linza. This Ulva species is one of those species that are synonymous to genus Enteromorpha. As you can see, it has a distinct characteristic of the genus Ulva and it is commonly known as the double ribbon weed. The light green to almost grass green thallus of Ulva linza is evidently displayed in this picture. It is called double ribbon weed due to its ribbon-like frond that is joined at its base. This frond or fronds may be branched or unbranched and can usually measure up to 30 centimeters in length. Evident tapering towards the end is another identifying characteristic of Ulva linza. Its habitats includes a variety of damp and aquatic environment. Still under class Ulvophyceae, the next species is Yolotrixflaga from the family Yolotricaceae. This algae is one that is attached to the shell in this picture. As seen in the previous picture and in the picture in the slide, when observed in situ, Yolotrixflaga is a filamentous alga that appears as woolly mat, usually in deep green color, that thrives in wide variety of strata, including shells and rocks. When observed under the microscope, you can see an aggregate of uniceriate cells with individual green colored shaped chloroplasts. This alga is often observed during summer. Next is an unusual alga that is still under Ulvophyceae. Trentifolia aurea is a filamentous terrestrial green alga under the family Trentifoliaceae that shares common traits like the deep red to rusty bright orange discoloration. As mentioned, they are orange or deep red in colors, observed as colonies or aggregates of fuzzy algae. The unusual color is due to the high carotenoid concentration in its filaments. This alga usually thrives on terrestrial environments like trees, rocks, and walls that may be close to coastal areas.
That ends our presentation. Thank you so much for listening.